The gunshot echoed in Kang Dae-seok's memory as he sat motionless in his wheelchair, staring at two untouched cups of coffee growing cold on the marble table. The woman he'd been set up with had taken one look at him, smiled politely, excused herself to the restroom, and never returned. 37 minutes had passed. He wasn't waiting anymore. He was simply refusing to move, refusing to give the whispering patrons of Ember and Oak Café the satisfaction of watching a paralyzed Korean man wheel himself out alone. The autumn light filtering through the cafe's tall windows caught the sharp angles of his face, highlighting a scar that ran from his left temple to his jaw. Once, men had crossed streets to avoid him. Now they stared at him like a museum exhibit labeled, "What Used to Be Dangerous." Dae-seok's fingers drummed once against the armrest of his custom wheelchair, a gesture that would have sent his former associates scrambling for cover. Today, it meant nothing. He reached for his phone to text Han Jun-kyu, his loyal fixer, when the door chimed open, and chaos in the form of a 6-year-old girl burst through. Maya Carter had her mother's dark curls and none of her careful restraint. She skipped ahead while Nia Carter followed, exhaustion written in the slight drag of her steps and the way she clutched her purse like it contained the last dollar she owned. Because it did. $52 between her and complete disaster. Nia had promised Maya a treat after the job interview, before she'd walked into that sterile office and watched the hiring manager's face shift from interested to concerned when she'd mentioned needing flexible hours for her daughter. "Mommy, can I get the chocolate croissant, please?" Maya's voice carried across the quiet cafe. Nia glanced at the price board and did quick mental math that made her stomach tighten. "We'll see, baby. Let's look at everything first. If you're already hooked by this story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload." Dae-seok watched this exchange with the trained observation of a man who'd spent 20 years reading body language for survival. He saw the mother's careful calculation, the daughter's innocent hope, the way the woman's hand trembled slightly as she opened her wallet. He recognized desperation because he'd weaponized it in others for years. But something about the tenderness in her voice when she spoke to her daughter made him look away, feeling like he was intruding on something sacred. Maya's attention span lasted exactly 45 seconds before she noticed the man in the wheelchair sitting alone with 2 drinks. Children possessed a brutal honesty that adults spent lifetimes unlearning, and Maya had it in abundance. She walked right up to Dae-seok's table, tilted her head, and asked, "Why do you look so lonely?" The entire cafe seemed to inhale and hold its breath. Naya's head snapped up from the pastry case, her eyes widening in horror. She rushed over, apologies already forming. "Maya? Oh my God, I'm so sorry. She doesn't understand." "It's fine." Dae-seok's voice was surprisingly gentle, though it carried the kind of authority that made Nia stop mid-sentence. He looked directly at Maya, treating her question with the seriousness it deserved. "Someone was supposed to meet me here. They didn't show up." Maya considered this with the grave wisdom of childhood. "That's mean. Nobody should stand people up. My teacher says that's not nice." "Your teacher is right." A ghost of a smile touched Dae-seok's lips, the first genuine expression he'd worn in weeks. "What's your name?" "Maya Elizabeth Carter. I'm 6 3/4. What's yours?" "Dae-seok." "That's a cool name. Why are you in a wheelchair?" "Maya." Naya's mortification was complete. "We don't ask people." "I was in an accident," Dae-seok interrupted, still addressing Maya. "My legs don't work the way they used to, but everything else works fine." Maya nodded like this made perfect sense. "My mom says our bodies are all different, and that's okay. She says what matters is what's in here." She tapped her chest dramatically. "In your heart." Dae-seok felt something crack inside his chest, something he'd carefully armored for 2 years since the night his own men had betrayed him. Since the bullets had shattered his spine and his empire simultaneously. "Your mother sounds very wise." Naya wanted to melt into the floor. This man was clearly wealthy. judging by his tailored black suit and the subtle gleam of his watch. The wheelchair was custom-made, not hospital-issued. And here was her daughter, treating him like a lonely kid on a playground. "I'm so sorry for bothering you. Maya, come on, let's order." "You're not bothering me." Dae-seok gestured to the empty chairs at his table. "I have 2 drinks going to waste, and I'd rather have company than pity stares from strangers." The offer hung in the air. Naya's instincts screamed danger, but not the kind she expected. This man had careful eyes, the kind that had seen too much. But when he looked at Maya, something softened. And Nia was so tired of fighting alone. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." They sat. Maya claimed the hot chocolate that had been meant for Dae-seok's absent date, and Naya accepted the latte, wrapping her cold hands around the warm cup. For a few minutes, they sat in surprising comfort. Maya chattered about her school, about her favorite teacher, about the stuffed rabbit she carried everywhere named Mr. Hopscotch. Dae-seok listened with more patience than Naya would have expected from a stranger, occasionally asking questions that showed he was actually paying attention. "What about you?" Maya asked suddenly, swinging her legs under the table. "What do you do?" Dae-seok's expression didn't change, but Nia caught the slight pause. "I used to run a business. Now I'm mostly retired." "Are you rich?" "Maya!" "It's okay." Dae-seok actually smiled this time, slight but real. "Yes, I suppose I am." "Then why were you sitting alone looking sad? Rich people are supposed to be happy. That's what TV says. TV lies about a lot of things." Dae-seok's gaze shifted to Nia, and she felt the weight of his attention like a physical thing. Money doesn't fix everything. It doesn't fix loneliness. It doesn't fix broken things. Naya understood that he wasn't just talking about his legs. She recognized the tone because she'd used it herself. Late at night, when Maya was asleep and the medical bills were spread across the kitchen table like accusatory letters. "No," she said quietly. "It doesn't fix everything, but it sure helps with some things." "What would it help with for you?" The question was direct but not intrusive. Naya found herself answering honestly. "My daughter had surgery last year. We're still paying it off. I just lost my job, so right now money would help with keeping the lights on and food in the fridge." Dae-seok nodded slowly. There was no pity in his expression, just understanding. "What kind of work do you do?" "I was an administrative assistant at a law firm. Before that, office management. I'm good at organizing chaos, apparently." She tried for a light tone, but couldn't quite manage it. "I might know of something." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a card, black with silver lettering. No company name, just a phone number. "I need someone with organizational skills, someone trustworthy, someone who won't ask too many questions but will tell me the truth when I need to hear it." Nia stared at the card like it might bite her. Every instinct she had warned her that this was too easy, too convenient, too dangerous. "I don't even know you." "That's fair. Think about it. The number's good for whenever you decide." Maya chose that moment to announce she needed the bathroom. Naya excused herself to take her daughter, leaving Dae-seok alone with his thoughts. He watched them go, the mother's protective hand on her daughter's shoulder, and felt an unfamiliar pull in his chest. When they returned, Maya had forgotten her stuffed rabbit on the chair. They were halfway out the door before she realized, and by then, Naya was too flustered to go back. That night, Naya's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. A photo of Mr. Hopscotch sitting safely on a black leather couch, and a single line, "He's safe. I'll return him when you call about the job. K." Naya stared at her phone for 20 minutes before Maya asked, "Mommy, why are you crying?" "I'm not crying, baby. I'm just tired." But she was crying, because a stranger had shown her more kindness in one afternoon than the world had offered in months, and she didn't know if that made him her salvation or her biggest mistake. 3 days later, desperation won over caution. Naya called the number. Dae-seok answered on the second ring. They met at the same café, But this time he was early, positioned at a corner table with clear views of all exits. Nia noticed this, noticed the way his eyes tracked every person who entered, noticed the slight bulge under the jacket of a man sitting alone near the door. Security. This man had security in a café. "Thank you for coming," Dae-seok said, gesturing to Mr. Hopscotch, who sat cleaned and waiting. "Your daughter must have missed him. She wouldn't sleep without him. I told her he went on an adventure." Nia clutched her purse. "About the job." "Executive personal assistant. You'd manage my schedule, handle correspondence, coordinate with various contacts. The work isn't difficult, but it requires discretion." "What kind of business are you in?" "Import and export, consulting, investments." All technically true. He didn't mention that his imports had once included weapons, that his consultations had involved territorial negotiations, that his investments were in legitimate businesses used to clean money from decidedly illegitimate sources. The White Serpent Syndicate had been his life for 20 years until his own ambition had made him enemies within his organization. The paralysis had been their coup. The forced retirement had been his survival. And the salary? Nia's voice was steady, but her hands weren't. He named a figure that made her blink. That's more than I made at the law firm. You'll be on call frequently, and there are benefits. Full medical coverage for you and your daughter." Nia's throat tightened. "Why me? You could hire anyone." "Because your daughter saw me as a person, not a tragedy or a threat. Because you're desperate enough to need this but proud enough to question it. I need someone who won't lie to me because they're afraid, and I don't think you're afraid of much." "I'm afraid of plenty," Nia admitted. "But I'm more afraid of failing my daughter. Then we have an understanding. But I need you to know something." Dae-seok leaned forward slightly. "My world has dangers. I've made enemies. If you work for me, there are risks." "Are you in the Mafia?" The question came out before Nia could stop it. Dae-seok's expression didn't change. "I was, once. Now I'm just a man trying to live quietly with the consequences of his choices." Honesty? Dangerous, brutal honesty. Nia should have walked away. Instead, she said, "I have conditions. My daughter comes first, always. If she needs me, I leave. No questions asked. And this is professional only. I'm not interested in anything else." Agreed on all counts. They shook hands. His grip was firm, warm, and Nia felt like she'd just signed a contract she hadn't fully read. The penthouse overlooked Silverline Harbor, all glass and steel and carefully maintained danger. Nia's first day was a lesson in controlled chaos. Dae-seok ran his reduced empire from this space, coordinating legitimate business ventures, while carefully maintaining distance from his old life. His fixer, Han Jun-kyu, was a slim man with sharp eyes who regarded Nia with open suspicion until Dae-seok introduced her as off-limits. The message was clear. She was protected. Nia learned quickly. She organized files, scheduled meetings, screened calls. She learned which contacts were business associates and which were old syndicate connections, checking if Dae-seok was truly out of the game. She learned that her boss slept poorly, worked obsessively, and treated his staff with firm respect. She also learned that the medical coverage he'd mentioned wasn't just good. It was comprehensive. And when she checked her daughter's hospital account a week into the job, the remaining balance read 0. She confronted him that evening after the other staff had left. "You paid off Maya's medical bills." Dae-seok looked up from his tablet, unsurprised. "Yes. That wasn't part of our agreement. I don't like unfinished business. The debt was hampering your focus. Now it's gone. That was $43,000. I'm aware." His tone suggested the amount was trivial to him. "Consider it an investment in employee stability." Nia wanted to be angry, wanted to maintain her pride, but instead she felt tears threatening. "Why are you being kind to us?" Dae-seok was quiet for a long moment. "Because your daughter asked me why I looked lonely, and nobody had been brave enough to ask me anything real in 2 years. because kindness is rare enough that when I can afford it, I should give it. And because I'm selfish enough to want to be around people who don't see me as what I used to be. That night, Nia went home and held Maya close, wondering how a dangerous man had become the safest thing in her unstable world. The threat came 3 weeks later. A message on Nia's phone, a photo of Maya's school with a simple caption, "Pretty daughter. It would be unfortunate if something happened. No demands, just menace." Nia's hands shook so badly she could barely dial Daiseok's number. He answered immediately. "What's wrong?" She couldn't speak, just sent him the screenshot. The silence on his end was more terrifying than any reaction. When he spoke again, his voice had changed, stripped of all warmth. This was the voice that had once commanded the White Serpent Syndicate. "Where are you?" "Home. Maya's at school." "Daiseok, what?" "Stay there. I'm sending security to the school now. Jun-Kyu will be at your apartment in 10 minutes. Pack bags for you and Maya. Enough for a week." "What's happening?" "Someone's trying to use you to get to me." His tone was ice. That was their first and last mistake. The emotional weight of this moment is hitting hard. If you're feeling it too, show some love by hitting that like button and subscribing. Your support means everything, and there are more powerful stories coming your way. Within the hour, Maya was pulled from school by suited men who terrified her teachers. Nia was in an armored car with Jun-Kyu, and they were heading not home but to Daiseok's penthouse. The security protocols that had seemed paranoid now felt necessary. Daiseok met them at the private elevator, his face carved from stone. "I'm sorry," he said simply. "This is my fault." Maya, who'd been frightened by the sudden change, took one look at Daiseok and ran to him. "Uncle Dae, are we in trouble?" The nickname surprised everyone, including Daiseok. He recovered quickly, reaching down to take Maya's hand. "Not trouble, little one. Just being extra careful. How would you like to have a sleepover at my place? It's very boring here, but we have a whole room you can use. With my own TV. And your own bathroom. Cool." Children adapted faster than adults. Nia watched her daughter accept this disruption with resilience she'd learned from too many upheavals, and something in her chest ached. Daiseok seemed to sense this. Once Maya was distracted by the novelty of the guest room, he turned to Nia. "I'm going to fix this." "How?" The message came from a mid-level player in the Eastern District, Lee Sang-won. "He's been testing boundaries since I stepped back, seeing if I'm still protected." This was him confirming I care about something. "About me?" "About you. About Maya." "Yes." No hesitation, no deflection. "That makes you targets, and I won't allow it. Jun-Kyu is already gathering information. By tomorrow, Lee will understand that crossing this line was a terminal error in judgment. You're going to hurt him. I'm going to end him as a threat. There's a difference." Daiseok's eyes met hers, and she saw the truth there. This man had killed before, would kill again if necessary, and felt no guilt about it when protecting what he considered his. "If that frightens you, you can leave after this is resolved. I'll make sure you're financially stable and protected. But while you're under my roof, nothing will touch you or your daughter." Nia should have been terrified. Instead, she felt the safest she'd been in years. "I'm not leaving." Something shifted in Daiseok's expression. Relief and something deeper. "Good." The days that followed were strange. Living in Daiseok's space revealed aspects of him Nia hadn't seen in the office. He worked from home, conducting business from his study while Maya explored the penthouse like it was a palace. He was surprisingly patient with her constant interruptions, answering her endless questions about his wheelchair, about Korea, about why he had so many books. In the evenings, they ate dinner together, the three of them, like the world's strangest family. One night, after Maya was asleep, Nia found Daiseok on the balcony, staring out at the harbor lights. She brought him tea without asking. "Can't sleep?" "Rarely can." He accepted the cup. "You should rest. Tomorrow might be difficult." "Are you going after Lee?" "Jun-Kyu is handling the details. I'm just making the decisions." He took a sip of tea. Does it bother you? Knowing what I'm capable of. Nia considered this carefully. It should. By all logic, I should take Maya and run. But you've shown us more genuine care than most good people have. You paid my daughter's medical bills. You gave me a job when I was drowning. You're protecting us from a threat that exists because of you, yes, but you're actually protecting us. Most men would have called security and kept their distance. I'm not most men. No, Nia agreed softly. You're not. The silence between them felt heavy with unspoken things. Finally, Dae-seok spoke. The accident that paralyzed me wasn't an accident. My own people set it up. I was getting too powerful, too ambitious. 3 of my senior lieutenants decided a power vacuum was better than my continued rule. They arranged an ambush, killed my driver, shot up the car. I survived, but my spine didn't. Nia's hand found his on the armrest of his wheelchair, a gesture of comfort she didn't overthink. I'm sorry. Don't be. I earned that betrayal through years of ruthlessness. What I didn't earn was being cast aside by everyone afterward. Power is magnetic until you lose it. Then people can't scatter fast enough. He turned his hand over, threading his fingers through hers. Your daughter saw me in that café and didn't see the wheelchair first. She saw a lonely person. That kind of clarity is rare. She gets it from her father. Nia's voice caught. He died when she was 2. Car accident. He was the kindest man I ever knew, and the world took him anyway. Sometimes I think Maya remembers his gentleness somehow, carries it with her. Then she's lucky to have both of you in her lineage. Kindness and strength. They sat like that, hands linked, until the night grew cold and Nia reluctantly went inside. She lay awake in the guest room, listening to the penthouse's quiet sounds, and wondered when this dangerous man had started feeling like safety. The confrontation with Lee Sang-won happened swiftly and without drama. Dae-seok didn't involve Nia in the details, but Jun-kyu's satisfied expression when he returned told the story. Lee's operations were systematically dismantled, his protection bought off, his assets frozen. By the time Dae-seok's people were done, Lee was fleeing the city with nothing, his reputation shattered. The message sent was clear. Kang Dae-seok might be paralyzed, but he was far from powerless. The tension is reaching its peak. If you're on the edge of your seat right now, smash that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. This story is about to take an incredible turn. It's done, Dae-seok told Nia a week after the threat had arrived. Lee won't trouble anyone again. You can go home if you want, or you could stay, not because you have to, because you want to. He met her eyes directly. I'm not going to pretend this is just about employment anymore, Nia. I care about you, about Maya. Having you here feels right in a way nothing has since before the accident. But I'm also a man with a violent past and powerful enemies. Choosing me means choosing that risk. Nia's heart hammered against her ribs. She thought about the past weeks, about Maya's laughter echoing through the penthouse, about quiet evenings with tea and conversation, about the way Dae-seok looked at her like she was something precious and breakable and strong all at once. I'm choosing you, she said quietly. We're choosing you. But I need you to understand something too. I'm not here to fix you or save you. I'm here because when the world fell apart, you were the one who caught us. Because you're honest about your darkness instead of hiding it. Because my daughter calls you Uncle Day and you let her paint your wheelchair with stickers. She did that without permission, and you didn't make her remove them. Dae-seok smiled, real and unguarded. They're growing on me. Nia crossed the distance between them and kissed him, gentle and certain. He responded carefully, his hand coming up to cup her face like she might disappear. When they broke apart, his eyes were suspiciously bright. I don't deserve this. Maybe not, but you're getting it anyway. 6 months passed like a dream. Nia moved into the penthouse officially, no longer a guest but a permanent fixture. She continued working as Dae-seok's assistant, but their relationship had evolved beyond professional courtesy into something resembling a family. Maya thrived, her laughter filling spaces that had been silent for too long. She started calling Dae-seok Uncle Dae. Without hesitation, though sometimes she'd pause and look at him thoughtfully, like she was considering a different title but couldn't quite find the words. Dae-seok's world stabilized. His legitimate businesses flourished. The ghosts of his past stayed distant, kept at bay by reputation and strategic alliances. He was no longer the head of the White Serpent Syndicate, but he was respected, feared when necessary, and mostly left alone. It was more peace than he'd expected to find. One evening, as autumn returned and painted the harbor in shades of gold, Dae-seok found Naya on the balcony where they'd first held hands months ago. Thinking deep thoughts? Remembering the café, how you looked sitting there alone, trying so hard not to show how much it hurt. She leaned against him, and he wrapped an arm around her waist. Maya asked me yesterday if you were going to be her new daddy. Dae-seok went very still. What did you tell her? I told her that was up to you and her to decide, but that you loved her very much. Was I wrong? No. His voice was rough. I do love her. I love both of you. I didn't think I was capable of this anymore, after everything I'd done, everything I'd become. But your daughter walked up to me and asked why I looked lonely. And somehow, that was the beginning of everything. She has a gift for seeing what people try to hide. Naya turned to face him fully. So let me ask directly. What do you want, Dae-seok? What does your future look like? He didn't hesitate. This, exactly this. You and Maya and ridiculous stickers on my wheelchair and dinner conversations about whatever Maya learned in school. I want boring domesticity with you. I want to wake up and know you're both safe. I want to be the man you see when you look at me, not the man I used to be. You're both men. That's the point. You don't erase your past, you build on top of it. Then I want to build this, with you, permanently if you'll have me. It wasn't a traditional proposal. There was no ring, no ceremony. But standing on that balcony with the city spread below them and the life they'd built humming around them, it felt more binding than any legal document. Yes, Naya said simply. We'll have you, even with all my broken pieces. Especially with them. They make you who you are. They make you the man who paid my daughter's hospital bills, who protected us when threatened, who lets a 6-year-old decorate his custom wheelchair with unicorn stickers. Dae-seok laughed, the sound free and genuine. Those stickers are terrible. Maya loves them, and you love her. I do. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. Thank you. For what? For not crossing the street to avoid me. For raising a daughter brave enough to ask hard questions. For choosing this when you could have chosen safety. You are safety, Naya corrected. You're just dangerous to everyone else. They stood together as the sun set over Silverline Harbor, two broken people who'd found completion in each other, and a child who'd seen loneliness and decided to do something about it. The world kept turning, threats stayed distant, and inside the glass penthouse, Maya was reorganizing Dae-seok's bookshelf by color despite his protests. Later that night, after Maya was tucked into bed with Mr. Hopscotch clutched tight, Naya found herself reflecting on impossible things. A year ago, she'd been drowning, desperate, terrified of losing everything. She'd walked into a café to keep a promise to her daughter and walked out with a lifeline she hadn't known existed. A paralyzed Korean Mafia boss who'd been stood up on a date had become her partner, her family, her future. What are you thinking about? Dae-seok asked from where he sat nearby, reviewing documents. How one missed date changed everything. For both of us. He set aside his tablet. I was so angry that day. Felt sorry for myself. Then Maya happened, and suddenly none of that mattered anymore. She has that effect on people. She gets it from you. That determination, that refusal to give up. Dae-seok reached for her hand. I meant what I said earlier. I want this to be permanent. I want to marry you, legally, officially. I want to adopt Maya if she'll let me. I want to be her father, not just Uncle Dae. Naya felt tears prick her eyes. She'd like that. She's been practicing writing Maya Elizabeth Kang in her notebook. She has. For 3 weeks now. She's just waiting for permission. Dae Seok's composure cracked, emotion flooding his features. For a man who'd commanded criminal empires and survived betrayals that should have killed him, the idea of a 6-year-old wanting his name was overwhelming. I don't deserve her, or you. Stop saying that. You deserve exactly what you've built. This family, this peace, this life. You fought for it differently than most people, but you fought hard. They sat together in comfortable silence, the kind that came from true understanding. The penthouse was quiet except for the distant sounds of the city below. Somewhere in the night, Han Jun-kyu was managing the last remnants of Dae Seok's old world, keeping threats at bay. But here, in this space, there was only warmth and safety, and the strange alchemy that had transformed loneliness into belonging. I should check on Maya, Naya said eventually. She's fine. I installed cameras in her room so we can see if she wakes. That's slightly overprotective. That's appropriately cautious given my history. But Dae Seok smiled as he said it. Besides, she insisted on the camera so she could wave goodnight to me before sleeping. I'm being manipulated by a 6-year-old, and I'm completely fine with it. She's got you wrapped around her finger. Proudly so. Naya leaned over and kissed him, slow and thorough. I love you, you know. I should say it more often. I love you, Kang Dae Seok. All of you, even the scary parts. I love you, Nia Carter. Soon to be Naya Kang, if you'll take my name. I will. We both will. They moved to the bedroom eventually. Their space now shared and intimate. As Naya drifted off to sleep, she thought about fate and chance and little girls who asked impolite questions. She thought about men who looked dangerous but treated stuffed rabbits with reverence. She thought about how sometimes salvation came in the form of 2 cold cups of coffee and the courage to sit down at a stranger's table. In the morning, Maya burst into their room at dawn, jumping on the bed with the energy of someone who'd slept soundly and had no concept of sleeping in. Uncle Dae, Mommy, can we have pancakes? And can we go to the park? And can Mr. Hopscotch come? Dae Seok groaned, but was already reaching for his wheelchair. Yes to all of the above, little one. Give me 10 minutes. 5 minutes. 8, and that's my final offer. Maya considered this seriously. Deal, but you have to make funny-shaped pancakes. I'll do my best. She scampered off, leaving chaos in her wake. Naya laughed softly. Our daughter is a force of nature? Our daughter, Dae Seok repeated, testing the words. They fit perfectly. I like that. So do I. The day unfolded with the beautiful mundanity of family life. Pancakes were made, though Dae Seok's attempts at shapes were questionable at best. The park was visited, security trailing at a discreet distance. Mr. Hopscotch got grass stains that would require washing. They returned home tired and happy, and Maya fell asleep during the movie she'd insisted on watching. That night, after carrying Maya to bed, Dae Seok and Naya stood in her doorway, watching her sleep. This is what I was looking for, Dae Seok said quietly. That day in the café, when my date didn't show up, I thought it was just another confirmation that I was broken beyond repair. But really, it was the universe clearing space for this. For us. For us. We've reached the end of this incredible journey, but yours is just beginning. If this story touched your heart, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and drop a comment telling us what you thought. We have so many more amazing stories to share with you, so hit that notification bell and stay tuned. Nia turned to face him fully, taking both his hands. We didn't fix each other. You know that, right? I didn't save you. You didn't rescue me. We chose each other, broken pieces and all. We chose to build something together. I know. Dae Seok pulled her close. And I'd choose you again, every time, in every life, in every version of this story. Even if I came with a chaotic 6-year-old who decorates your expensive wheelchair with stickers. Especially then. They kissed in the doorway of their daughter's room. Two people who'd found each other in the wreckage of their separate struggles. Outside, the city continued its endless rhythm. Threats existed, danger lurked. The past never fully released its grip. But inside this penthouse, inside this family they'd built from loneliness and chance encounters and a child's brave question, there was only love. Kang Dae-seok had been the head of the White Serpent Syndicate, feared and powerful and untouchable. Then he'd been betrayed, broken, abandoned. He'd sat in a café, paralyzed and alone, watching his date walk away. He'd thought that was his ending. Instead, it had been his beginning. Because Maya Carter had seen a lonely man and decided to do something about it. Because Nia Carter had chosen trust over fear. Because sometimes the family you need finds you when you've stopped looking. The story of how a paralyzed Korean mafia boss found love wasn't written in the language of grand gestures or fairy tale endings. It was written in small moments. A child's honest question, a mother's desperate courage, a man's willingness to be vulnerable. It was written in sticker-covered wheelchairs and paid hospital bills and quiet nights on balconies overlooking the harbor. Months turned into years. Maya grew taller, started calling Dae-seok Dad without the uncle prefix, and eventually stopped being surprised when her friends asked if her father was the scary guy in the wheelchair. She'd learned to answer with pride. Yeah, that's my dad. He's not scary, he's protective. There's a difference. Nia and Dae-seok married in a small ceremony on the penthouse balcony, with Maya as the flower girl and Han-jun Kyu as the reluctant best man. There were no crowds, no press, just the people who mattered. When Dae-seok slipped the ring on Nia's finger, his hands trembled slightly, and she steadied them with her own. "I've got you," she whispered. "I know," he whispered back. "That's the miracle." The White Serpent Syndicate became a distant memory, a chapter closed and locked away. Dae-seok built legitimate empires instead, companies that bore his name without shame. He donated to children's hospitals, funded medical research for spinal injuries, and never once pretended to be anything other than what he was. A reformed criminal, trying to leave the world better than he'd found it. On the 5-year anniversary of that day in the café, they returned to Ember and Oak. The same table, the same autumn light, but everything else transformed. Maya, now 11, ordered hot chocolate and grinned at her parents. "This is where you guys met, right? Because some lady stood Dad up?" "That's right," Nia confirmed, squeezing Dae-seok's hand under the table. "Well, she's an idiot," Maya declared. "Because you're the best dad ever." Dae-seok's eyes grew suspiciously bright. Even after years of hearing it, the word dad from Maya's lips still undid him. "Thank you, sweetheart." "You're welcome. Now can I get a croissant too?" "Yes, you can." As Maya went to the counter, Nia leaned over and kissed Dae-seok's cheek. "Happy anniversary." "To the woman who didn't show up?" he asked with a slight smile. "To the man who stayed anyway. To the daughter who saw what everyone else missed. To us." "To us," Dae-seok echoed. They sat in that café, a family forged from loneliness and chance, and watched the world move around them. Somewhere, the woman who'd stood Dae-seok up was living her life, never knowing she'd walked away from something extraordinary. But that was her loss and their gain. Because sometimes the best love stories don't begin with love at first sight. Sometimes they begin with 2 cold cups of coffee, a child's brave question, and a mother's desperate hope. Sometimes they begin with someone choosing to sit down instead of walking away. Sometimes they begin at the exact moment you stop believing they're possible. And sometimes, just sometimes, that's when the real story starts.